I'll never forget the look on my daughter's face when she walked into my tiny rented room, the one I had tried so hard to keep her away from. Her eyes widened like she'd just stepped into a nightmare, except the nightmare was my reality. I was lying on a thin, worn-out mattress on the floor, no frame, no headboard, nothing. Just a cheap blanket I got from a clearance bin and a pillow that felt more like a folded sweater than something someone should sleep on. She stood there frozen before finally whispering, "Mom, where's your bed?" Then her voice cracked, trembling with something between confusion and heartbreak. "You get $7,000 a month from Dad. Where did it all go?" And that question hit me harder than any insult I've ever heard, because in that moment, I realized she had no idea what I'd been hiding, what I'd been sacrificing, and why I was in this room instead of the comfortable home she imagined I still lived in. So here I am telling you everything exactly as it happened, because I honestly don't know if people will see me as the villain or the victim. Was I wrong for what I did? Tell me if you would have done the same thing. The truth is, this story didn't start with that mattress. It didn't start with my daughter's shocked expression or the suffocating shame I felt crawling up my throat. It started long before that, back when I thought my life was stable, predictable, and, dare I say, normal. My ex-husband, Daniel, and I were married for 20 years. We weren't perfect, but we had a life, a home, routines, and our daughter, Mia. If you had asked anyone, they would have said we were solid. And I believed that too, until the day I found out about Natalie. She was younger, louder, sheenier. She laughed too hard at Daniel's jokes, flipped her hair too much, and wore those business, casual outfits that always looked like she was trying just a little bit too hard. I didn't know anything about her until the truth slapped me in the face. He didn't even confess. I found the messages myself. Flirty texts, hotel bookings, long paragraphs where he complained that I was emotionally draining, that I didn't understand him, that Natalie was refreshing. Like I was a stale soda he had left open on the counter. The divorce was brutal, not just emotionally but financially. The court granted me monthly spousal support because I had worked part-time most of my life while raising Mia. $7,000 a month was supposed to help me rebuild, but nobody tells you that rebuilding isn't glamorous. It isn't instant, it isn't easy. After the divorce, Daniel kicked me out of the house, our house. The one where Mia grew up. He did it legally, through the court, of course. Everything was proper. He and Natalie moved in soon after. They even repainted Mia's old room, turning it into some kind of minimalist yoga studio. When I heard that, I almost threw up. Because I didn't want Mia caught in the middle, I tried to make everything appear fine. I rented a small apartment, not unsafe but small. I didn't buy new furniture, I kept things bare functional. But then the bills started piling up. Legal fees, medical checkups, deposits, repairs, transportation. Everything costs money when you start from zero, and that $7,000, it evaporated. Every month I told myself I'd save. Every month reality slapped me harder. But I never told Mia. I didn't want her to think I was struggling. I didn't want her to feel guilty or pressured to choose sides. She stayed mostly with her dad because the school was closer. She visited me on weekends, but I always took her out. To a cafe, the park, the library, anywhere except my place. She thought I was just renovating. I let her believe that. I let her believe a lot of things, maybe too many. Then came the day that changed everything. I had moved into a cheaper room after my lease ended because rent had gone up, and I simply couldn't afford it. The new place was smaller, older, and honestly depressing, but it was all I could manage. I told Mia the same lie, that renovations were dragging on. But that day, she arrived earlier than expected. I had planned to meet her outside, but I was running late from a doctor's appointment. She knocked. Nobody answered, so she used the spare key I gave her, for emergencies only. And the moment she opened that door, my entire secret life spilled out. She stared at the mattress first, then the cracked walls, then the suitcase I kept open because I didn't have a proper closet. Her voice was so small when she asked why I was living like this. And when she brought up the $7,000, I realized she thought I had blown it irresponsibly. She thought I was wasting it. And the worst part, she began looking at me like she didn't recognize me. So I took a deep breath and told her everything. Well, almost everything. I told her how expensive starting over was, how I had no savings after the divorce, how every month was a juggling act. I didn't tell her about the medical bills yet, the ones I'd been hiding because I didn't want her worrying. But she didn't react the way I expected. She got angry. She accused me of lying to her for months. She said that if things were this bad, I should have told her. She said she felt betrayed, and maybe she was right. But I didn't want to drag her into my struggles. I didn't want her to see me as weak, and, if I'm being completely honest, I didn't want her going back to Daniel and Natalie saying, "Mom can't manage her life." I couldn't stomach that humiliation. She stormed out that day, and I honestly thought I'd lose her forever. She didn't speak to me for 3 days, and it felt like my lungs were collapsing every hour that passed. Then she texted me asking if I could come over to her dad's house so we could talk as a family. I already knew what that meant. Natalie would be there. And I was right. When I walked in, Natalie was sitting next to Daniel like she belonged there. She always did that, sat too close, crossed her legs like she was posing for a catalog, and tilted her head like she pitied me. I hated it, meanwhile, acted like he was the judge and jury of my entire life. Mia looked heartbroken but determined. She said she wanted us all to talk openly. But before she even finished her sentence, Natalie jumped in. "We saw pictures of your room," she said, her voice dripping with concern so fake it could have been printed on plastic. "It's unsettling. I mean, what are you doing with the money?" I felt my jaw clench so tight it could crack. Daniel looked at me with that disappointed dad, who's actually your ex-husband face, and said, "This is concerning behavior. You're not managing things responsibly." And that was the moment something snapped inside me. I spent 20 years building that man's life. 20 years raising our daughter. 20 years putting my dreams aside, and now he had the audacity to treat me like some unstable stranger who couldn't handle her own finances. I told them the truth, this time the full truth. The medical bills, the therapy sessions, the dental surgery I needed but kept delaying, the legal fees that never seemed to end, the rising rent, everything that swallowed the money before I even saw it. Maya's eyes softened. She finally understood. But Daniel and Natalie, no. They exchanged that glance. Couples do it when they think they know something you don't. When they think they're above you. When they think they're the stable ones. Natalie said, "You should have planned better." I swear she said it with a straight face, like she had any idea what it meant to start over past 40 with nothing but a box of clothes and a broken heart. I felt the heat of humiliation crawl up my neck, and I wanted to run out of that house. But Mia grabbed my hand. She said she wanted to help. She said she didn't want me living like that. She offered to give me some of her own savings. A kid offering money to her own mother. I didn't know whether to cry or collapse. Daniel, meanwhile, acted like he was doing me a favor by saying, "Maybe we can revisit the support amount and see if adjustments need to be made." That's when I realized what he meant. He thought I was irresponsible. He thought I didn't deserve the full amount anymore. He wanted to reduce it. In that moment, I felt smaller than I had ever felt in my entire life. My own daughter saw me struggling. My ex-husband saw me as a burden, and his new wife saw me as an inconvenience. After that meeting, I walked out feeling hollow. Maya came with me to my room again later that evening. This time, she wasn't angry at me. She was angry at them. And seeing her sit beside that thin mattress holding my hand, telling me she was sorry for snapping it, nearly broke me. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. Because what came next was worse, much worse. But before I tell you what happened next, I need to ask you something honestly. What would you have done in my place? I had nothing. My ex-husband had everything. My daughter was caught in the middle of a storm she didn't create. And I was being judged for circumstances I didn't choose. So pause for a moment and tell me, would you have stayed quiet, or would you have fought back? I genuinely want to know. Because the choice I made next, well, it changed everything. For me, for Mia, and for Daniel and Natalie too. And I don't know if people will see it as justified or cruel. All I know is that I reached my breaking point, and once a person reaches that point, something inside them changes permanently. The night after everything exploded, I lay awake on that thin mattress staring at the ceiling, the paint peeling in little curled flakes like old skin. Maya had gone home hours earlier, texting me that she loved me, but that she needed time to think. I understood, but that didn't make it hurt any less. I felt like I was unraveling, like every lie I told to protect her had backfired so violently that the fallout was still settling in the air around me. And while the sadness was heavy, there was something else bubbling underneath it. Something sharp, something scorching, something that felt like the beginning of anger. Not the kind of anger that makes you scream or throw things, but the kind that settles deep inside your bones, the kind that grows roots. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't keep living like a ghost in my own life. I couldn't keep letting Daniel and Natalie act like they were the righteous ones while I was the irresponsible disaster they painted me to be. I had spent years trying to be quiet, graceful. But being quiet got me ignored. Being graceful got me walked on. And being mature, it got me thrown onto a mattress on the floor while everyone else lived comfortably in the home I helped build. So the next morning, I made a decision. One that I didn't fully understand yet, but one that changed the trajectory of everything that followed. I went to see a lawyer, not the one from the divorce. A different one, a younger one with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. Her name was Priya, and from the moment I sat down in her office and she asked what I needed help with, something in me cracked open. I told her everything, my finances, the medical bills, the support payments, Daniel's threats to reduce them, my living situation. She listened without interrupting, without judging, without pity. When I finished, she leaned back and said something I hadn't heard in a long time. "You've been taken advantage of, and you don't need to accept that." It felt like someone had thrown me a lifeline after years of drowning silently. She told me that based on everything I described, my expenses, my medical documentation, the cost of living increases, and Daniel's significantly higher income now that he had climbed the corporate ladder even more with Natalie at his side, I was actually entitled to more support, not less. Not only that, but Daniel had violated several financial transparency rules during the divorce, rules that Priya believed we could use to reopen the settlement. I stared at her like she'd just told me I had won a lottery I never entered. I felt guilty at first. I didn't want to be the bitter ex-wife taking more money. But then I remembered Daniel sitting in his chair with that condescending tone. I remembered Natalie narrowing her eyes at me like I was an unstable inconvenience. I remembered the way they made my daughter question me. And something inside me hardened. I wasn't being vindictive. I was surviving. Priya immediately started preparing documentation. She assured me that everything I was doing was within my rights. "You don't owe them an explanation," she said. "You owe yourself stability, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe I deserved that." Meanwhile, Mia grew distant. She texted me but didn't visit for almost a week. I knew she was processing everything, caught between loyalty to her father and fear for me. I didn't blame her. She was a teenager forced to navigate adult messes. When she finally showed up at my room again, she brought groceries, a blanket, and a quiet look of sadness. She didn't ask questions. She didn't mention Daniel. She just sat with me, and I held on to that moment like it was air. She was still my daughter. She still cared. But I knew she was scared too. Then came the confrontation. Because of course Daniel found out. Of course the man who wanted to reduce my support was not about to sit quietly while his ex-wife reopened financial documents he thought were sealed away forever. It happened on a Saturday morning. I was washing dishes in the communal kitchen of the boarding house, my wrists aching from the cold water, when the front door slammed so loudly the entire hallway rattled. Daniel's voice echoed before I even saw him. "Where is she?" I froze. Every tenant in the building froze too. And then he appeared in the doorway like a storm brewing in a badly fitted suit. But it was Natalie behind him who shocked me more. Not because she was there, but because she looked nervous. Actually nervous. Her fingers were twitching and her eyes avoided mine. Daniel marched toward me. "What the hell do you think you're doing reopening the settlement?" His voice was loud. Too loud, loud enough that people peeked out of their rooms. I swallowed hard, but I refused to shrink. Not anymore. "I'm doing what I have a legal right to do." "You're trying to extort me," he shouted. "No," I said calmly despite the tremor in my hands. "I'm trying to survive. Something you clearly don't care about." And Natalie stepped forward finally, her voice coated with fake sympathy. "We're concerned about your mental state. This place, this room, it's not healthy. Maybe the court would see that too." There it was. The threat. I felt something inside me click into place. If they wanted a battle, I wasn't going down quietly. I leaned in slightly and said, "Do not try to weaponize my living situation when you are the reason I'm in it. I'm not the unstable one here. I'm the one who's been rebuilding from nothing. And you don't get to invalidate that anymore." Daniel looked blindsided. He wasn't used to me talking back. He wasn't used to me standing firm. He wasn't used to me not breaking down. Then he said something that made my blood go cold. "If you keep pushing this, we'll make sure Mia stays with us full time." That was the moment my knees almost buckled. Not because I thought they could take her from me. They couldn't, not legally, not morally, but because he said it so easily, as if she were property he could threaten me with. Before I could respond, someone else did. Mia. She had walked in behind them. None of us had noticed her. She stood there with her backpack still slung over one shoulder, her face pale, her eyes wide with betrayal. Not at me, but at her father. "How could you say that?" she whispered. Daniel turned, startled. "Mia, sweetheart." "No," she said, stepping between us. "You don't get to use me like that. You don't get to threaten Mom with me." Natalie tried to intervene, but Mia snapped. "And you? Stop pretending you care. You don't. You just want things easy for yourselves." I had never seen my daughter like that. Fierce, protective, angry. Daniel stammered something, but Mia shut him down. She grabbed my hand, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Mom, you're coming with me. You're not living here anymore." My breath caught. "Mia." "No," she said, squeezing my hand. "I'm not asking." And that was the moment everything shifted. Mia packed my things, what little I had, and helped me carry them to her dad's car. Daniel protested the entire time. Natalie tried to guilt, trip her. But Maya ignored them. She told them she was staying with me for the week. She told them she wasn't going to be part of their manipulation. When we reached the house, yes, their house, the same one where they had humiliated me, the same one where Natalie replaced Mia's room with yoga mats, Maya marched inside and grabbed her things. Not all of them, but enough to send a message. They tried to stop her, but she didn't listen. "Mom deserves a decent place to stay," she said. "And until she has one, I'm staying with her." Daniel looked like his world had collapsed. Natalie looked like she was calculating every possible comeback she could make, but none of them landed. That night I stayed in a motel, not glamorous, not luxurious, but it had clean sheets and a real bed. A bed I insisted she sleep in while I took the chair, but she refused. We both shared it like we used to on stormy nights when she was little. And something happened in that small motel room that I will never forget. She laid her head on my shoulder and said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I should have been on your side sooner." And I told her she had nothing to apologize for, that I was the one who hid things from her, thinking I was protecting her. We cried. We laughed a little. We healed a little. It didn't fix everything, but it fixed something. The next part of the story unfolded over the next few months. The legal battle began. Daniel and Natalie fought hard, but Priya fought harder. All the things Daniel thought were hidden, they weren't. Every financial inconsistency, every under-the-table asset, every strategic omission, it all came out. And the court did not take kindly to it. Not only were my support payments secured, they were increased. Significantly. I didn't celebrate immediately. I cried first. Tears of relief, exhaustion, vindication. Natalie nearly exploded in the courtroom, which the judge did not appreciate. Daniel stared at the table the entire time, his face red. But the best part, Mia was there. She held my hand the entire time. After the ruling, I was finally able to get a proper apartment. Nothing extravagant, but beautiful to me. A real bed. A kitchen with enough space for 2 people to cook. Sunlight through the windows. Room for Mia to stay whenever she wanted. And she did. Often. As for Daniel and Natalie, they learned a lesson they never expected. That the woman they thought they could break wasn't as weak as they believed. That their threats had consequences. That Mia was not a pawn. And that stability isn't something someone deserves only when they're married to the right person. It's something they fight for. Things between Mia and her father eventually softened, but never fully returned to how they were. She began seeing him with clearer eyes, not hateful ones, just realistic ones. And me, I learned that silence protects no one, least of all yourself. So here I am telling you all of this openly. Because maybe someone out there is living on their own metaphorical thin mattress, trying to hide their struggles, trying to be strong quietly, trying not to burden the people they love. And maybe this story will remind them that they deserve better. They deserve to speak up. They deserve help. They deserve support. Before I end this, I want to say something directly to you. If you were on my side during this roller coaster of a story, hit that like button. If you want more stories like this, stories about real people, real struggles, real confrontations, make sure you subscribe. And I want to hear your thoughts too. Tell me in the comments, was I justified in taking legal action? Would you have done the same? Do you think Daniel and Natalie got what they deserved? Thank you for staying with me through this emotional mess. I'll see you all in the next story.